Hello, everybody. Now, this is exactly what Tom would have loved. And I'm so thankful for you all coming and cheering us all on and thinking all of our great memories. The food is behind me. The drinks are to my right. Help yourself. Make yourself walk through there, come back here, whatever. So, of course, I have a few things to say, and Tom's immediate family has a few things to say, and people are making faces at me already. Sudie, Jesse, Molly, Meredith, Emily, Gretchen, and I, and all the rest of our family welcome you to Tom's party to celebrate his life and to tell your stories of Tom. We started coming to Cafe Lily when it first opened in 1999. It's our family and friends' go-to place where we are always welcomed. Tom used to sit by those front windows where the photographs are so that we could enjoy ourselves and people would walk by and we'd say, "Come on in." Cafe Lily didn't need our help. So please make yourselves comfortable, get up and find more food to eat or drink, to chat, get somebody out of a chair so you can sit down, whatever you like, because this is a party. Don't mind us telling stories while you get a bourbon or a lemonade. And please take one of Tom's published stories, The Habit of Guineas, home with you. And I thank Judy Long for putting that all together, and I especially thank Tom's cousin, Rob Ivy, who is here. Raise your hand. Because the punchline, or what we call I can't find my word, whatever is the important word, a line of the story, the climax, that's it, sorry. The climax is actually Rob's father's story climax. And he's already published it in his memoir. And Rob and Tom heard this story told by Rob's father in front of the fireplace. So, but I think the grandfather is Tom's grandfather. So that's okay. And it's a beautiful, beautiful story. It's my hope that the afternoon is just like one of our parties, that you can hear Tom's big laugh and revel in all the tales that are told. Parties, yes. Parties for badminton friends, for graduate students, for high school students, international visitors, tea parties, birthdays, engagement and graduation parties, hotel room parties at conferences, just for the drinks. Welty birthday potluck bashes, celebrating holidays, 4th of July, Thanksgiving, Christmas, the new millennia, weddings, baby showers, game nights, and book clubs. Tom himself was a party. But a party is only good if people are having fun and enjoying it with him. Tom loved children, always had $1 or more to give any child. Later, he was giving away Pink Panthers, inventing a new game every day for the grandchildren, finding odd pieces of wood for the neighbor child to build something, setting up a gumball machine with M&Ms, pennies provided, sending elaborate messages from the report card fairy, who once had been held up at a report card fairy convention in Florida. But he wanted to make good weeks later. Tom was writing poems and cat stories. He was playing chess with the grandchildren. Once, when Tom was teaching at Ole Miss, he and his housemate hosted a block party, just their second week in residence. He took over. He described it this way: there are 8 or 10 kids here, oldest about 12, and they call themselves the 8th Street Gang, even have T-shirts and a clubhouse, etc. And as I was working away at my little computer, they were very busy. Without knowing, I could see them through the blinds. They were taking bricks out of the old garden beside this house and carrying them off for some project. Maybe I'll find out what it is. They greet me cheerfully and were delighted when Jack and I had our first party, a kind of block party, and invited them. They put away a lot of cheese, soft drinks, and Doritos. Apparently, the first adult party they'd been invited to. By his own description, Tom's parents divorced before he knew them as parents. And this led to him spending his school days with his grandparents, Jesse and Lola Viola Posey Brown, along with his mother and aunt and cousins in Luxora, Arkansas. There he was known as Tommy Brown and became familiar with his grandfather's grocery and hardware stores and the candy counter, and the black workers and clientele with whom he always called by their full names out of respect. Innately, he knew it was the right way to treat fellow human beings, even in a racist South. Summers and holidays he spent with his father, Thomas Lafayette McHaney Sr., called Fay, his grandfather, Melvin Minton McHaney, and soon his very loving stepmother, Nancy, Rob's aunt. Is that right? Okay, good. In Tupelo, Mississippi. There, they knew him as Tommy or Tuck McHaney. And there, too, he used his lonely hours visiting the ladies and elderly in the neighborhood. He described visiting Nancy's father, who had Parkinson's, who could not move very well, who spoke haltingly, but, quote, he listened to me all one hot summer afternoon while I explained to him how television worked. This before television even came to Tupelo. I had read it in the Popular Science magazine. Tom was, he wrote, about 11 or 12. In describing this to his daughter, Jessie, Tom continued, so if I seem too enthusiastic, it goes way back. It's not something invented just to cheer you or anyone else. My father must have been something like that too. And perhaps I invented myself out of my regard for him, something heightened and frozen into youthful idolatry because he died when I was 10. Everyone loved him. Of his mother, Tom wrote, in her youth, she was tiny, beautiful, vivacious, someone who went out and got what she wanted as much as she could. This was the war years, World War II. Tom credited his mother with a good deal of my social sense and even my ability to wear clothes and somehow make them look like something, whether they are something or not. Thus, Tom's suspenders, his playful ties, his colorful socks. Tom never missed an opportunity to convey a meaningful message of joy. In Luxora, he read comic books and science fiction, and maybe the same in Tupelo. But his father, 2 years after marrying Nancy, when Tom was 5 or 6, became an invalid, trapped in a hospital-type bed with pulleys and slings. But his cheer and love for Tom, and importantly for Tom, he kept a lending library and always had a crowd of lively and loving adults in the house. One of the stories that Tom told, and I hope this isn't Rob's father's story also, and put into his fiction, is of the town's most proper undertaker, who showed up periodically on the gravel turnaround at our back door in his firm's most obsequious hearse, and took me and my father for rides through the hilly Mississippi countryside. My father lay strapped on the cot in the back, and I sat in the plush jump seat beside him, the hearse's hidden siren blaring as we broke every law. From his velvet lorry, my father smiled, as he said, like Lazarus, and with his eyes closed, waved to the startled farmers whose wagons he passed on our way absolutely nowhere. There's always a kernel of truth in these fictions. Loving and living with Tom for 40 years, I've come to understand that Tom's father, who died when he was 10, Tom was 10, was a model and mentor and hero for all of Tom's life. In 1924, at 14, Tom's father gave the valedictorian-type speech at his graduating junior high class, including this lesson of many that to me epitomizes Tom. So this is Tom's father writing when he's 14. The great race of life. In the great race of life, common sense has the right of way. Wealth, a diploma, a pedigree, talent, genius without tact and common sense cut a small figure. Not that what you know or who you are, but what you can do is the interrogation of the century. This seems to me to be a direct line to Tom, who at 24, a first-year master's degree student at UNC Chapel Hill, joined the picket line in front of the local movie theater in support of the, quote, full emancipation of our country's citizens, as he wrote in his editorial for the Daily Tar Heel. And Matt Torney, director now of Theatrical Outfit, posted that on his Facebook page, so you can read that. Fay McHaney beseeched his friends and patrons, one and all, quote, to help us in our understanding to make men and women out of ourselves. Tom seemed to have absorbed so much of his father's wisdom. Tom exuded all of these qualities in the most natural and unaffected manner, to family, of course, but also to friends and colleagues, students and strangers, never asking for anything in return. One page of comments that I found on a graduate student's portfolio of coursework exemplifies the relationship he fostered with natural ease. Dear Alicia, in all of your work, your notes, your reading, your writing, and your finds within good scholarship on Southern writers, you demonstrate such a fine, thoughtful intelligence and perception that I feel privileged to observe the path you've taken within this course. You have great discernment and intellectual energy that will surely lead you to fine work in whatever you do. Tom McHaney. So those of us who are teachers, like, I don't think we wrote that much. But there are two side comments here, if I follow my script. That I found this note in Tom's study last week means that the portfolio and Tom's appraisal were never collected, nor read by the student. But I feel certain that she understood what she had accomplished and how Tom regarded her work. And secondly, I believe Jesse and I might be Tom's only students to earn a B in his courses. And now I'm forced to find some of my own words for a moment. From start to finish, Tom was synonymous with generosity. His Faulkner collection and all associated books and files are going to Talladega College, Alabama's oldest historically black college, where our former student and friend, Willie Todd, is president. Tom's body he donated to Emory University School of Medicine for research. His love he gave freely to all of us here and afar. As Tom had given his best self, and he only had a best self, to Karen and their 3 girls and Karen's family, so too did he give a bright, exciting world to me and my 3 girls, whom he also loved unequivocally. Tom gave us a world of books and art, parties, encouragement, unbounded possibilities. Tom took me to Germany and France and Norway and Austria, Italy and Spain, to Oxford and Ocean Springs, Mississippi, St. Simon's, Ocean Isle Beach, Chicago, San Francisco, New York, Charlottesville, New Orleans, Highlands, North Carolina. I took him to Catskill, Holland, Michigan, and Jackson, Mississippi, and he thought it was a fair trade. We read together, Faulkner and Welty, of course, but also the New York Times and the New Yorker, and for the last 2 decades, our Pine Tree Drive, Good Neighbors, No Guilt Book Club books. We bought art together. Our first was a print of Romare Bearden's The Siren Song, and that got us started. We met Glenn Ray Tudor and Pat Clore's wife, Pat, who, not surprisingly, was Tom's student in one of his Ole Miss classes years before. And Richard Jacobson, who also, not surprisingly, in the way of Tom's world, knows our Decatur friends. And we filled our home with art. We bought Walter Anderson's and Susan Ashley's watercolors, as well as art by Georgia State students. We put Lee Kirkland's art in every room. In our family, we also adopted Cherokee names, honoring Tom's belief, maybe fantasy or wish, in a Cherokee ancestry. I mean, Posey, he always said Posey, must be, no, but we know it's not. Anyway, Tom was most appropriately Swimmer, the Cherokee chief storyteller and keeper of traditions. We carried on Tom's traditions, reading How Come Christmas by Rourke Bradford, playing badminton and skittles, going to Ocean Isle every summer. And we started new ones, stuffing Christmas stockings with lottery tickets and magazines and colorful handkerchiefs, Christmas collections of sheep and Santas and trees, flowers from the grocery store trips, cherry pies, theatrical outfit, Cafe Lily, fiesta-ware dishes, fall birthdays with friends, pétanque on Sunday nights, opportunistic collecting from other people's throwaways put out for garbage, and game nights. People often play the game of family quotations. In our family, we seriously said we were rich in love, taken from Joe Humphrey's title. But less seriously, we said, Mama can wash it. Tom can fix it. A flat tire or a skinned knee, these were easy. But in every place he ever lived, Tom also fixed a pond. He built a brick patio, a fern bank, gardens torn out of weedy red clay, a pétanque court, plywood angels and hula hoops of light. There was nothing, it seemed, that Tom couldn't fix or try to. So much so that if we wanted to throw something away, like a dead pen or a tattered file folder, we had to bury it deep in the trash and take the trash out and take it to the curb. I'm not lying on that. I'm not exaggerating either. Tom spent his retirement making gardens and more friends. To Tom and my great joy, our family grew exponentially. The 6 girls brought us their friends and then their partners, who became our sons, finally. Children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren. My sister and brothers brought their partners and children. David brought us Opie. Our students became our friends and then our family. More daughters and sons. Tom ran and played badminton and golfed with friends who became family. Colleagues and students from everywhere, domestically and internationally, living with us for days or weeks, sometimes months, became family. Neighbors on Claremont and Pine Tree became friends, and then most certainly family. People sometimes, often actually, ask us about our secret, what made our love so marvelous. But it wasn't a secret. It was, first of all, respect, and second, more importantly, it was friendship. And then came love. But above all else, for 40 years, it was our friendship that gave us our beautiful life. Faulkner wrote, and Tanya Caldwell reminded me, that was when I, quote, that was when I learned that words are no good, that words don't even fit what they're trying to say at. Of course, that's Faulkner. And that is why I close not with my words, but with another's. Although Tom had his family, they told me I could have longer than maybe your stories. And if they're wrong, it's too bad, too late. Although Tom had his father for only a few summers and holidays, that which Faye's friend Jimmy Carpenter wrote at Faye's passing in 1947 is, I think, a perfect description of the Tom that we all knew and loved and befriended. So this was written of Tom's father, but to me, it has always been absolutely on point of Tom. Not every man can boast scores of friends. Not every man has a place so unique in a community that his leaving it casts a pall over the spirits of his friends. Not every man, in fact, knows how to live with zest and joy. Not every man even loves life. But Faye McHaney and Tom McHaney are not classed with every man. They both stood apart from the dull, drab, even crass mass of men as vividly as does a single oak tree in a lonely pasture. His brilliant wit, his avid interest in all phases of human activity, his awareness of the happiness in his community, his sparkling summation of books he had read, his detestation of sham and pomposity, his courageous refusal ever to whine, defy description. In his presence, only gaiety prevailed, only laughter and zest. If any man can carry that mood when he meets death, if the spirit of any man could ask for no tears of parting or farewell, then that man is Faye. That man is also our dearest friend, Tom McHaney.
So I'm Sudie. I am named after my dad's grandmother. And I'm the firstborn. And I want to make that clear. I'm not the oldest. I'm the firstborn. So thank you guys all for being here. I have a little something I'd like to read and share with you guys. I'm going to try to keep it together. I'm the crier of the family. The day my dad died, I went to see my sister Molly so I could tell her in person that he had passed. She got very quiet, and she just kind of looked up at the sky, and after a long pause, she said in a voice that almost a whisper, Dad was the only person who supported me in anything I wanted to do. She said that. She said that when she wanted to paint, he simply said, paint. And as I thought about those words, I realized they captured something that so many of you have shared with me today, and even in the past few weeks and in your posts on Facebook. It was a theme that keeps coming up. Dad believed in people. He believed in all of us. As a father, he was always there to encourage us to try whatever sparked our interest. When I wanted to play softball, he stood in the backyard, Jesse will know, throwing ball after ball to me. He even told me, which you guys will love, that if I slept with my glove, I'd be a better player. Not sure it really worked, but I did try it. When I wanted to learn to throw a football, he hung a tire in the backyard so I could practice my aim. When I became interested in basketball, he hung a basketball goal on the garage. And when I wanted a new book to read, he never hesitated to hand me one. Sometimes one that you might have thought was a little too advanced, or maybe even a little appropriate for a teenager, but I devoured them. Later, when I wanted to play golf, he paid for lessons, and we made Wednesday mornings our standing tea time. The hours on the golf course were always full of tales of his youth, and of course, stories of Faulkner. In fact, we had a running joke, and when we would go have dinner with Papa or Dad, we would say, okay, how many times do you think he'll mention Faulkner? It was always more than we thought. He was the professor to everyone, Leroy, at the Decatur Y. When he became a regular in my Friday cycling class, the professor was especially loved for bringing pimento cheese sandwiches with the crust cut off. Leroy, right? Yeah. So Leroy is here representing the nooner class at the YMCA. No matter what we chose to do, Dad was proud of us. He always found a way to show his love, his confidence in us, and his unwavering support. He didn't push us to be the best at everything. He wanted us to experience life. He wanted us to be curious and to enjoy the journey and never be afraid of failing. That may be one of the greatest gifts he ever gave me. Not the certainty that I would succeed, but the certainty that whatever happened, he believed in me. Dad promised me that one day he would publish the great American novel, and he would buy me and my sisters each a brand new VW convertible. I want you to see the Bronco I'm driving. It's not a convertible. I reminded him that one of the last times that I saw him, and he just smiled and said he was going to start writing again. I believed he's probably sitting side by side with Faulkner right now, working on that novel. VW. I'd like to finish by reading the last lines of the story, What the Heart Is For, that he wrote. It was published many years ago in the Southern Humanities Review. It's my favorite story. It's based on a real story of when my dad found and lost his first love as a young boy. Tim, the main character in the story, makes a plan to meet the girl, but it doesn't end the way he envisions. The last few sentences of the story sum up the way my dad lived his life and how he taught us to embrace every experience life has to offer. And even when I read this anytime, it always chokes me up. So I can do this. Now, even in daylight, in a crowd, alone on the street, it doesn't matter. The quick tremor, the breathlessness, the weight on the chest, they come. I stop and suck a little air. Go on, but it never quite goes away. They tell me simply what the heart is for. Thank you, guys.
So I'm Jessie. I'm daughter number 2, or second born, not second oldest. And when I sat down and thought about how I wanted to honor Dad today, I could only write directly to him. So this is a letter to Dad that I'm sharing with all of you. Dear Dad, thank you for your words. Phenomenal, illustrious, righteous, luminous, gracious, philanthropic, exuberant, infectious, charismatic, and of course, marvelous. Your words were my first poetry. I remember trying to grasp them as if I were reaching for the tail of a kite, certain that if I could just catch hold, they would carry me into the magical world you seem to inhabit. Thank you for your well-tended gardens. I hold vivid mental snapshots of them, especially the one you cultivated in Columbia, South Carolina. It is the setting of my earliest childhood memory, and I believe the source of my lifelong love of nature's spaces. I think that for you, gardening was never simply about plants and hardscapes. It was about unveiling hidden possibilities. At the Courtney Drive house in Atlanta, you dug beneath layers of neglect, uncovered an old pond, and patiently restored it. You spent hours manually busting apart a cracked concrete patio, only to repurpose every broken piece into a series of terrace garden steps that remain to this day. I think your gardens reveal not only your gift for transforming landscapes, but also people. You recognize the potential that lay waiting within them, and you help them actualize it. Thank you for teaching me the meaning and value of community, especially the communities we create ourselves, ones that draw people together, evolve organically, and weave connections so deep and unexpected that they take on a life of their own. I imagine this gift came naturally to you, perhaps because you were raised by grandparents who owned the only general store in Luxor, Arkansas. Your personal stories of Saturdays at the store captivated me. Your spoken recollections of farming families throughout Mississippi County who made the weekly pilgrimage to town to buy groceries and, as you like to say, keep society, were so richly told that they became borrowed memories. Though I was never there, I feel as though I remember those Saturdays in Luxor as vividly as you did. Through your stories, I came to understand that your grandparents' store was never simply a place to buy groceries. It was a gathering place where neighbors lingered, friendships deepened, and community blossomed one conversation at a time. I marvel at the way you carried that child experience forward, recreating it again and again in the gathering spaces you made for others, family, friends, neighbors, colleagues, students. Thank you for just being Dad. Thank you for naming me after your grandfather, Jesse Wynn Brown. The name you chose for me is perfect, and I've always loved it. Thank you for looking the other way every time Sudie and I would sneak kittens into our bedroom, and for letting us believe our lies had escaped you every time we denied having done so. Thank you for teaching Molly how to read when her first grade teachers mistook her tender sensitivity for lack of ability. While I underestimated her, you saw her potential. Your unwavering belief in her changed the course of her education and most likely the course of her life. Thank you for composing the soundtrack of my childhood. The Beatles, Simon and Garfunkel, Joan Baez, the Chieftains, Harry Belafonte, Joe and Eddie, Scott Joplin, to name but a few. Thank you for 13 years of Sunday softball in Piedmont Park, one of the many communities you cultivated from scratch. For Sudie, Molly, and me, the park was a wilderness to roam while you grown-ups played ball. It was also a place of genuine fellowship and the only church I've ever known. Thank you for the gift of a soft leather glove and for the hours we spent tossing a softball in the backyard. You taught me to use an extra hand to secure each catch, a lesson that has served me well in far more than softball. Thank you for offering me books from your shelves. It's safe to assume that most of them were not intended for a child my age when I read them. I devoured them all. You had an uncanny knack for giving me just the right book at exactly the right time. When I felt like a caged bird, you handed me Maya Angelou. When I felt alienated and invisible, you offered me Ralph Ellison. And when I became introspective, you suggested T.S. Eliot. I want to tell you that those books saved me, as I'm sure you knew they would, because A, you chose them for me, and B, these books probably saved you a time or two as well. Thank you for choosing to remember us girls as well-behaved and simply marvelous on those long car drives to Bunny and Grandfather's house in Chapel Hill and to Ocean Isle Beach. Thank you for not fixing the television when it broke. In its absence, you gave us something far more valuable, the time and space to discover hobbies and interests that became lifelong companions. Thank you for not batting an eye when I said I wanted to become a vegetarian. Twice. Once at the onset of a failed attempt at age 8, and then again, for real, at age 13. Thank you for raising all 6 of your daughters and surviving our adolescence without ever banishing any of us to Siberia. Thank you for not crying and seeing me genuinely pleased when I told you I had changed my college major to philosophy. Thank you for granting me the space to mold myself so that I could evolve into who I was meant to be. Some folks might consider this a form of benign parental neglect, but I call it grace. Thank you and Pearl for welcoming Steve into the family fold and for letting us celebrate our marriage at your house. By the way, the volleyball net you set up in the backyard was an especially nice touch. Thank you for taking such delight in your grandkids and great-grandkids. They are so blessed to have known the warmth of your love and the light of your presence. Thank you for loving us all in here and beyond as we do you. Thank you, Dad, for these gifts and for countless others too numerous to name. They continue to bloom in my life and in the lives of everyone you touched. I will do my best to carry the gifts you have given me and tend to them as lovingly as you tended them in me. I love you, Jessie.
I'm not my papa's youngest. I'm my mom's son. So she couldn't be here today. So I just wanted to speak for her and say what she wanted to say today. So I did not print it out, sadly, but that's okay. Okay. So this is called My Dad by Tom McHaney. Read to you by me, Finn. My dad taught me to read words when I was a toddler by placing labels on furniture all around the house. Door, chair, table, and couch. A few years later, after I had conquered complete sentences, my dad encouraged me to read whatever I wanted. And I read a lot. Everything from Hardy Boys and Nancy Drew to The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Beyond reading, my dad supported all my creative efforts, which included painting and music and writing poetry. I recall sitting with my headphones on, listening to Simon and Garfunkel, the Isley Brothers, and Peter, Paul, and Mary on his stereo. He even slipped a reference to the music I liked, specifically the band The Police, into the script of one of his plays. Growing up, my dad and my mom allowed me and my sisters freedom to roam, as my dad had done in his small Arkansas town where he grew up. We spent a lot of time running around the neighborhood. We built forts and clubhouses and backyards, climbed on the jungle gym at one kid's house, and careened our bikes down the steep slope of our front yard. When summer rains and a stopped-up drainage grate created a flooded intersection around the corner, we took it as our own private swimming pool. My dad never blinked an eye. Another fond memory is Sunday softball at Piedmont Park. On Sunday mornings, my dad brought a bag of bats and softballs to a ball field at Piedmont Park, where we met up with Art Waterman's family and other Georgia State professors and their families as well as assorted strangers who joined in for a game of pickup softball on one of Piedmont Park's fields. Only a torrential downpour could keep us away. On rainy Sundays, we would all head for Artie Waterman's cavernous old house on Memorial Drive, where my sisters and I played hide and seek with the Waterman's 4 boys, or games of ping pong on the big front porch, or shoved the furniture aside and danced in the dining room. My dad's encouragement and support, along with his example as a man in love with words, eventually steered me to a college degree in English Lit at Georgia State. which worked well for me. They led me to my first job as a writer with Creative Loafing, and subsequently to my 30-year career as a content writer. As it turned out, those first words my dad scrawled on paper and taped to every object around the house held results that he, at the time, could have scarcely have imagined. And that's all.
I'm the firstborn's husband, David. And Tom, Mo and I, his neighbor, we played golf every Sunday for how many years, Mo? 20? Something years. And Tom took so much pleasure in playing golf, even though he never got any better at it. But
What about you?
that's the wrong question to ask Mo. But I was there, Mo was there the day, and I have yet to have this accomplishment. Scored a hole-in-one on hole number 10 at Bobby Jones before they redid it. And I don't even think he realized it happened, but Mo and me were losing our minds. And I'm just so glad that I got to be there to share that experience with Tom. And not just the experience of him scoring a hole-in-one, but his love of that game that we all shared together. And that was it. That's all I wanted to say.
I'm Robert Ivy, and I'm sort of Tom's cousin. My aunt was his stepmother. And at this age, I remember certain things just vaguely, but from the past. And that's really what I have to offer. I can remember his father in the hospital bed in their home on Highland Circle. And what that love that Pearl was talking about that was shared with me, although at that point I was an infant and I didn't really know what or who he was. But I know that he had rheumatoid arthritis and he was confined to the bed, and he had a sort of a stretching object that you could pick up things off the floor with, and I still have that to this day. My aunt was totally non-domestic. She was sort of a crazy lady. Her picture is back there on the table. She was beautiful, and she called him Tommy. And my young life was filled with Tommy stories, things that she had done or that he had done, and I can't tell you what any of them are or were. But she loved him ferociously, I will tell you that. And she didn't have him all the time because he would be with his mother part of the time. And she wasn't happy about that. I remember his grandfather, whom we called Daddy Mac. And Daddy Mac would stay sometime at my grandparents' house. It was a large house in Tupelo, which was sort of this little ideal small southern town, but married to the rest of America, not like the old South. And Daddy Mac was in sales, as I recall, and I may be wrong there, but he always put on a tie. And at the dinner table, he ate peas on a knife, which just blew my mind. But he stayed and came and went in and out of Tupelo every now and then. But he was someone that they gave a certain amount of respect to. I remember Tom going to Mississippi State, and my family were readers and students all the way through their lives. And I shared this with Pearl in a note. But I can remember as a small boy, Tom coming in on a winter's night, and I may have it all jumbled up in the memory bank. Might have happened over time. But on a cold night, and the water sloughing off of his raincoat, and what joy that brought into my parents' home. They loved him. And they would build a big fire in the fireplace of the living room. And the three of them would sit and talk for hours, sharing stories. My dad was a raconteur and told constant stories about his own childhood in the South, which was very rich. But the takeaway from that was that they loved being in each other's presence, and they loved sparking their stories and their minds off of each other. And the big thing that I remember was the laughter, because Tom would guffaw every now and then, and you'd know that the stories were swelling and working. And that went on for hours. They loved having him drive up the driveway and come in the house. I enjoyed it because he was an older guy, and to me that was sort of a mentor. I really looked up to him as a young boy. Later he came with his wife Karen and his daughters, and I just remember today I have a beautiful photograph of them walking in the woods up in the hills behind our house under hardwood trees with golden leaves in the sky. And it's really paradisical. It's an amazing shot. He grew into adulthood, but I left and went on and had another life, into the service and into school and into marriage, and lived in the Northeast for many years. So we really lost touch, but in my mind, he's still Tommy. And Tommy is someone who is filled with potential. Tom is always someone who was in the act of becoming, in my mind. Someone who was so intelligent and so interested in the world around him, the world of literature, the world of ideas, that he was always inquisitive and hungry for more. And so in my mind, it's limited in its duration, but it's a very rich one. And it's who might he become? And how marvelous to be standing in this room with all of this bevy of friends and admirers who have known him and the life that he forged with you all together. I feel a sense of completion myself. It's a sort of therapy for me, and I'm a little bit shaken by it, but in a wonderful, wonderful way. So Pearl and family and Karen, everyone, thank you so much.
Good afternoon, everyone. I, like David, share the distinct pleasure of being one of Tom's son-in-laws. And I just wanted to relay a quick story that I think so accurately captures who Tom was and the legacy that still exists in this room amongst all of you. Probably one of our most one of our most beloved pictures is a picture of Tom on the beach, Ocean Isle, which has been mentioned multiple times by multiple of Tom's children and Pearl, and a place that we love so much and holds so much importance for us. But I don't even remember which kid it was, but one of them that was young, like a new baby, just kind of moving around on the sand for the first time. And it was a particularly hot day at Ocean Isle with very little breeze. And there's a picture of Tom standing over our toddler, providing shade. And it's such a simple act, but I think it is such a symbol of who he was and what he provided for all of us. And his deep investment in each of our children, his grandchildren, into each of his 6 girls. And quite frankly, I'd say this, my boys are probably sick of me hearing it, or sick of hearing me say it. Life's all about choices. And sometimes, you make choices, albeit honorable ones, but make life quite hard. The best choice, one of the best choices I ever made was proposing to his second firstborn, Meredith, just to be clear. And he just welcomed me as if I was one of his own. And the support that I maybe didn't get from other places, I always got from Tom. and he had no idea what I did in my career. But he thought I was the best person at everything I ever did, which is patently false, but true in his mind. And that belief that both Sudie and Jesse and Finn relayed, he relayed on all of us. And for some reason, he thought I was a good golfer. And maybe because he wasn't that great of a golfer. But to David's point, nobody enjoyed the game of golf probably more than Tom, when he never knew what his scorecard was. He would hit a ball into the woods and just laugh about it, whereas the rest of us want to break a club over our knee. He just brought such amazing joy. And what I learned from him and his example as a father, he's just always steady. And seeing it with his children and his grandchildren, he just has invested so deeply in each of us. And where his grandchildren are today is a tremendous legacy to who he is as a man, and we will forever be grateful for his investment in us. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My given name is Lorna. I hail from Catskill, up in the New York, not the Catskills, but the town of Catskill. Beautiful place. So I don't think Pearl really gave it, enough. But anyway, I'm Pearl's sister. Let me go back. My given name is Lorna, but Pearl needed me to have a nickname, so I became Lori. But one of the things that's been in my head very constantly in the last several weeks is that Tom, every time he saw me, would call me Lolly. And I probably didn't appreciate that as much as I should have. And all these stories today have really kind of bringing to my mind, too, all the wonderful things that I experienced because of Tom and his love for my sister. One is, that when I first came in, I'm actually the third born, okay? Really, I go right between Jesse and Molly. So, I kind of already felt really at home because I had these new people in my family, Sudie and Jesse and Molly, and got to know them. And then really felt like they were more sisters to me than something. I don't even know what I would call it. But and then of course my nieces, Meredith, Gretchen, and Emily. And so I also had experiences on the golf course with Tom, and literally right before Matt said this, I was thinking, oh yes, he taught me the art of not keeping score. And I still have the art of not keeping score, although I don't play very often. I remember that there were some rules. So he always was a father figure. And he also practiced tough love sometimes, like no singing at the dining room table, which I thought was kind of silly. But then if you have Emily and Gretchen and Meredith all trying to sing at the dinner table, there's not much else going on. So I grew to love Tom like he was also a father figure to me, and really has always been that to me. I love him so dearly, and his generosity, his gentlemanly ways, everything that I can attest to, he maintained that till the very, very end. And that was truly him. There's no other way to describe him except with those words. So thank you for hearing my stories.
I got a funny story to tell, and I hope I can get through it. It's a really good one. My name is Steve, and I'm the oldest of the son-in-laws. I guess I'm Jesse's husband, and so and this is Tom's great grandson. Is that correct? Holden. And I want to talk about Tom and his attitude. Now, how many of you have gotten to the point in life where you realize that attitude is everything? Just raise your hand. Attitude is everything. Well, I kind of got to that point slowly. When I first met Tom, everything was perfectly marvelous. And he was eager to do everything and it was going to be perfectly marvelous. And I thought, this guy's not paying attention. This guy doesn't understand. This guy doesn't have it together. Well, later I realized he actually does or did have it together, and everything was perfectly marvelous. So now I want to get to the story. So Jesse and I live way up in the mountains, and Tom and Pearl came to visit, and we suggested that we go for a hike. And this was in the later years, and so we thought this hike would be gentle, and it would end at a waterfall, a beautiful waterfall. We thought this is going to be great. And you know this story. It's a good story. So it was a nice hike, very gentle, almost flat, short, the perfect hike. The only problem was there was a muddy section. And if you think you know Georgia mud, you need to come up to the mountains and really get to know the thick, sticky Georgia mud. And this was what we call bottomland. So the mud was black as coal, and it stuck to you like glue. And we were assisting Tom as he needed through the mud. And I guess I got distracted by something. Maybe Pearl got distracted by something. Tom did a face plant. Bam. Oops. Sorry. And he was face down in that thick black mud. And when I say face down, I mean face down. So we rushed to his aid, got him back up, stood him up. And I never thought I would see Tom in blackface. But that day, he was in blackface. And we rushed to scrape the mud off his forehead and scrape it off of his cheeks. And, all this, and I apologize. No, it was all our fault. He says, no. I said, Tom, are you okay? And he said 2 words. He said, perfectly marvelous. And that's my story.
My name is Leroy Bass Knight, and I'm a family friend of Tom and his family. And I met Tom in the most innocent way. Sudi introduced me to her dad in the Decatur YMCA spin class. This was probably 20 years ago. And he was known as the professor to the students in the class, but he was always Tom to me. And Tom's friendship to me became very important because all of the best friends that I've ever had a common trait, and that was that they shared their entire family with me. And I quickly learned that Tom's family he left a legacy of teachers. So while he was the professor in the spin class, and I never learned anything about Faulkner outside of Georgia State, I had a career in technology. I could always see his love and the kindness and the passion that he had for his daughters. And that was an example that he shared with me as I taught students and I worked on the various projects that I worked on. So Tom had a personal effect on me. I was sharing with some of the people here that occasionally in this spin class, every few months, Tom would bring in these pimento sandwiches and Coca-Cola. So Dr. Pearl, you probably know that I'm also a carpetbagger from New York City, and I would in the summer I would travel to Charlotte, South Carolina, where my grandmother was from, and I was both my grandmother's favorites. Uh, Tom would always remind me of my nanny because he had the same identical recipe for those pimento sandwiches that my grandmother made. Uh, One time, and I was her favorite. My grandmothers never raised their voice at me at all, except for one particular instance where my grandmother sent me to the corner store in Charlotte, South Carolina, and she asked me to bring back some Coca-Colas uh, to go with these sandwiches, and I went down there, and from Brooklyn, New York, we really don't understand the differences between Pepsi Cola and Coca Cola. So they had this big promotional sign that said, we're giving away this big box of Pepsi Cola. And for the $2 or $3 that my grandmother gave me to bring them back, I says, well, this is good. I could get all of these Pepsi Colas and bring them back there. Well, I brought that back home. And my grandmother, for that one time in my entire life, she raised her voice at me. I never forgot it. And those pimento sandwiches that Tom would bring always reminded me of my grandmother. And, you know, I just, I really love Tom. He had a steady presence, and he made people feel seen. All of his friends were seen. You could see it through all of his children. Sudie was an outstanding teacher. I met Jessie before she arrived. She came home from UAE teaching English second language. Their children were burgeoning teachers. I used to nickname Dame Dr. Dame and Saint Nick. And you could just see how his pedagogy, how he would have a conversation with you. He would try to draw a line for me between his traveling to Europe when he would return from the summer before school started, and how that related to Faulkner, which is something I had a very hard time understanding. But I would just say that Faulkner wrote, "The past is never dead. It's not even past." But Tom's influence is always going to stay alive in me because he was so generous with me. He interrupted his schedule so that my daughter, that came fashionably late to Georgia State to give her a tour when she was shopping around for colleges and universities to go to. And, you know, I'm trying to explain to my daughter, sweetheart, he's the chair of this university and he doesn't have time in his schedule to be late. And he was so accommodating and so generous with her. And he spent the next 90 minutes showing her why it was important for her to attend that university. And I never forgot that. So, Dr. Pearl and family, I want to thank all of you for sharing your family with me. And y'all are stuck with me forever.
Hello, I'm St. Nicholas. I'm Sudie's son. First, I'd like to say I don't know what everyone's talking about with Papa and golf. Thanks to Papa Golf, I've been shooting the best game of my life. The first hole, you get a par. If it's in the rough, you kick it into the fairway. It doesn't count as a stroke. I mean, you guys are just scoring wrong. I'd like to say, as a grandchild, I think I hold a rare title, and that I'm the only grandchild to ever make Papa mad. That's a hard feat to do with Papa, as everyone here knows. And the secret to that is you get him to take you to the zoo. You ask him to carry you around the whole time, and when he gets tired and puts you down, you start crying and say, your legs are broken. Well, after I don't know how long of me crying and saying my legs were broken, please carry me, Papa finally had enough and got mad and put me in the car. And even Mad Papa was very sweet and kind, and he couldn't do it. He just had to keep silent because he couldn't say anything mean. So, and I think today, if you ask Papa, he would say I was perfectly marvelous. And that's my Papa story. Thank you.
My name is Randy Harbor, and Pearl and Tom have been part of my life for at least 30 years, I would think, or more. 40. I am reliably informed. So, one year, well, I should back up and say that for years and years, my wife Kathy, who died a couple of years ago, would make me go to the State Farmers Market and would inevitably pick a Christmas tree that had an S curve in the trunk. And finally, one year, saner thoughts prevailed, and I was able to buy an artificial tree. And so the way this worked was that McHaney's would come over, and Kathy would sort of have loosely put lights on the tree, and Tom would then go and correct all that and make it, where we could do it. And so Kathy said to me, do we tell Tom this is an artificial tree? And I said, no, let's just let him discover it. So all of us, all the girls, Kathy and I were in the kitchen where I was cooking. And Tom went up on the tree to reset all the lights. And he had suffered with me through all the S-curve trunks for all these years. And so everything got quiet. Nobody was saying anything. And Tom appeared at the kitchen door and said, that's a fake tree. But that year for lunch, one of the things I prepared was ocio di bue, which is an Italian dish of butter poached asparagus with an egg on the top of it. Then you pierce the yolk and it goes all over. So Tom ate his, as usual, with gusto. And at the end, I could tell he had forgiven me for the fake tree because he said that egg dish was one of the best ones I had ever done. So here's to Tom.
Several people have mentioned Sudi being the firstborn, and there was a story that Tom used to tell about Sudi's birth. He was in the hospital, very excited over the arrival of his firstborn, and he was just sure that his in-laws were at home, waiting on the edge of their chairs to hear about the birth. So he calls his in-laws' house, and he starts with, "This is Tom." And his father-in-law says, "Tom who?" Which I think is the last time anybody ever said that. He was just well known through the years. I once taught English at Georgia State, published an article with Tom, got to be friends with him, and he loved my kids, but he loved everybody's kids. If you had kids, he loved them. And he used to take the 2-year-old and the 5-year-old and squish them together into a 7-year-old. And I'm sure that my kids were not the only ones he did that with. And then just a mention of Jessie. There was one time, for some reason, Jessie was babysitting our kids at her house. And afterwards, we were all in the living room talking. And Tom just happened to mention that there were things that happened in this family that your mother and I don't know about. This caused Jesse to burst into gales of laughter. And much to Tom's credit, he didn't stop. He didn't stop her. She just laughed and laughed and laughed about all the things that Tom didn't know about. So farewell to Tom.
Hi, I'm Heather. This is Rebecca Reed.
Right here. Rebecca Reed Becky to some in the room.
That's right. Tom was great at giving nicknames. When Rebecca and I were in grad school with him in 1998. Okay. All right. First, I met Tom when I was looking for grad schools. I was thinking about Emory, and he asked me what I was thinking about. I said, Emory. He said, that's a fine school, but it has no ethos. So apologies to any Emory folks here, but I ended up going to Georgia State, and Tom was welcoming and generous. When I started, Tom and Pearl handed out beanie babies to everybody who were new students, and I had a little turkey beanie baby. I think I have it somewhere still. There was a conference, and my last name was Spar. The conference program had Sparks as the name, so people called me Sparky. And then the next time I saw Tom after that, he said, "Hi, Sparkle." I was like, yes, that's Tom. He made people sparkle, and he was the best.
I worked for Tom.
That's right.
I have known Tom what feels like my entire life. I was his GRA, and then I was his graduate assistant when he was the graduate director at Georgia State. I was his surrogate daughter. I kept the girls when they were young, and the McHaneys would go out of town. I had the pleasure of walking his beloved Shiva throughout the most wonderful neighborhoods. I attempted to care for his beloved cat, Picasso. And I'm not sure which daughter named Picasso this, aka maybe it was Gretchen Cujo. Because the cat I don't think liked many people, but Tom. And we just spent so many wonderful days at their home together. And there's so much I could say about Tom. I had so many wonderful conversations with him about Faulkner, and if you know me well, you know I really don't like Faulkner. So you can imagine how rigorous these conversations were, but it was through these conversations that Tom actually introduced me to Eudora Welty and other writers that have really taken on such a wonderful space in my life. But there are really two more personal things I'd like to say about Tom. He was the most supportive mentor, absolutely, the most wonderful surrogate dad I could ask for. But I learned how to deal with honesty and criticism from Tom, because he would tell you when you knew your paper was an A, he knew and could tell you directly to your face that it was also lazy, that it was not the best work you could have done, that if you wanted to get better and be the best you for yourself, for your family, and for your teachers, you would have to sweat it out. You would have to work a little bit harder. And I got my work ethic from Tom. I get accused a lot in various worlds that I live in for my intensity, but my intensity is thanks to Tom McHaney, who brought that same passion to lift you up in all the ways you needed lifting up. Some of us need a hug. Maybe I needed a good slap every now and then. And he was willing to teach me to take it and to do better. And more personally, what I would say is when I was working for Tom, I think it was my second year as his full-time grad assistant, so full-time staff job, my father passed away very young in his sleep at 45. And it was a very difficult family situation. You know how sometimes these things are books that wonderful novelists write about because of the family dynamics. And I had no idea how I was going to keep it together. I had no experience with this, how I were going to keep the parts of the family from killing each other, to get through
the viewing and all of the things that are typically go with Southern funerals. And I remember calling him and crying to him on the phone about how I was going to keep it together. And he said, "Don't worry, I'm going to be with you." And he gave me this wonderful talk about how I could do better and I could get in there. And for my grandmother who had lost a son, I could be there and make that happen and keep that peace. It was a wonderful conversation, and I thought he meant he'd metaphorically be there, right? Imagine how my surprise, something that stays with me to this day, when at one of the worst moments, the very first night of the funeral, the viewing, I didn't know what I was going to do. And I turn around to go outside to just get away for a minute, and there stands Tom McHaney. He didn't mean metaphorically standing with me. He meant he would stand with me. And I just went to him, and we went outside, and I cried, and I said, "Thank you so much for being here for us." And he said, "There's no us here. I'm here for you, and I will be here standing with you as long as you need me to." And that's my Tom. So thank you all. This is not as long as it looks. It's just I will stutter if I don't read it. So I'm going to use my big teacher voice, so I hope you can hear me. My name is Debbie Miller. I'm a neighbor and friend of Tom and Pearl's. Like family. With Tom and Pearl, if you're a friend of Tom and Pearl's, you are like family. But as a neighbor and friend, I have so many fond memories of Tom. Chief among them are things everybody has already said, but which bear repeating because they are the quintessential Tom McHaney. His joyful laugh, of course. He brought happiness and fun to every gathering of friends by his laugh. Our house is between McHaney's house and downtown Decatur, and we always knew when Pearl and Tom were hosting friends in their enthusiastically generous way, because we could hear Tom's laugh when they walked by on the road to downtown restaurants. Even inside the house, we could hear him out on the street. And yes, pétanque. I don't know if anyone's mentioned pétanque yet. We couldn't really hear. But what other one-block neighborhood in Decatur was lucky enough to have a fully equipped pétanque court in somebody's backyard with an open invitation to commune with friends over a lively game of pétanque every Sunday night? No expectations, no RSVPs, no worries if you couldn't come. It was just always a reliable invitation, always open, and it was a gift unparalleled that Tom gave to his friends and neighbors. And I have one more unique personal memory about Tom, for which I will always be grateful. During the time when, I can't look at Pearl, during the time when Pearl was caring for him full-time at home, when he was no longer as conversant as he once was, when his memory was pretty well gone, we as neighbors and friends organized to visit him, and during a time which we would read aloud to him, mostly to give Pearl a break, but also because Tom seemed to enjoy being read to. One of my visits turned out to be more valuable to me than my reading was to Tom, I'm sure. I had chosen to read to him a book of poetry that I had to read anyway for my upcoming Poetry and Wine Club meeting. And it was poetry that I absolutely did not understand. After reading aloud one particularly obtuse poem, and knowing Tom was a literature professor, I asked him how he would interpret that poem if he were in a classroom in front of his students. And bear in mind, he was not speaking yet much anymore. His memory was almost shot at this time. But he launched into a full professorial mode right there in his favorite chair in the living room. And what I remember from his very thoughtful answer will serve me well for as long as I continue to read poetry. He said that most poetry is a metaphor for something in the poet's life that we don't need to understand to appreciate the poem, that we as readers can apply the metaphor to something in our own experience to give it meaning. And it's as simple as that. And since that conversation, I have approached all the Poetry and Wine Club meetings with Tom's little trick in my pocket. It has made a lot of difference in how I perceive difficult poetry. And one more thing, Tom often quoted Faulkner's most famous line, "The past is never dead. It's not even past." I'm sure you've heard him say that before. But the truth of that statement comes alive now more than ever when I think about how our memories of Tom will stay alive in our hearts.
Yes.
Hi everyone, I'm Eleanor. I have the joy of being Pearl and Tom's niece. I have so many fond memories of him, even from when I was really little, like dancing with him at Matt and Meredith's wedding and going for crab walks at Ocean Isle Beach. And I remember he would hold my hand like so tight. I think maybe he was like worried about losing me because it was dark out and we would walk with the flashlights and count the crabs. But so many wonderful memories throughout the years. But most recently, my mom and I came to visit in February, and I remember two things so sweetly, and one of them was his manners. He never lost his manners until the end. There was one day that I made him lunch, and I was like, "You can go ahead and eat it. You don't have to wait." He's like, "Well, no, I will wait. I'm gonna wait for you." And then, as Deb just mentioned, a lot of time was filled with reading to him. He really enjoyed being read to, and you can probably guess what he wanted me to read to him. It was Faulkner. Well, actually, it wasn't Faulkner. It was his commentary on Faulkner. And so I would start reading to him, and he would like pick up and just start saying the words. I guess he remembered them, and he would say, "Wow, this is really good." And I was like, "Yeah, Uncle Tom, like you wrote this. It's so great." And we had that conversation over and over again. But it was really sweet to see him appreciate his own writing so much and be so proud of it, and also just be able to fill in the gaps. Like he never forgot any of his knowledge on Faulkner, which he loved so much. So those memories are really sweet to me, and I'm so grateful that I got to have that time in February with him.
I'm Robert Kay. The first time I got in touch with Tom was in 1979. I was looking for a place to play badminton. And I don't know how I got his number, but I called him up and he said, "Yeah, I play badminton at Georgia State." And of course, I didn't know he was an English professor at that point. But he said, I asked him, "Well, when do you play?" And is it all right for me to come? And he said, "Absolutely. I need somebody to play with. There's only two other fellas that I play with, and that was Roy Chen and Rich Toth." And so I went there and played, and he said, he asked me what did I do for work, and I said, "Well, I'm a scientist. I work at CDC, and I live in a trailer out in Beaufort. And you come all this way?" And I said, "Yeah, because I love the game, and I'm trying to figure out how to get better at it." And so we played for a while, and there were four of us, and we played at least, several years. I became Tom's chauffeur to get home. We'd go find some place to eat, and I would take him home, and then I took this other fellow, Roy, home somewhere outside 285. I was crazy, but I did it. I did it, and I think because I told him I was a scientist with CDC, he never talked to me about Faulkner. Okay, he said it probably was hopeless, But at some point he said, "Bob, what do you think we got to do to get more people to come?" And I said, "Well, we have to teach people how to play the game and invite people. Maybe have a continuing ed program." He said, "Really?" And so we started having people come in, and he asked me if I would be their coach. And I said, really? I mean, I can hardly hit the shuttle. And he said, Bob, you're the one. And I said, okay. And so I'm teaching people how to play badminton. After a couple months, he comes up to me and says, Bob, do you think there's a place that you could go to learn how to play better? And I said, yeah, I can work on that. And so I did. I went to Connecticut badminton camp, and boy, they had the best players in the country. They're the best coaches from camp. And of course, the first time I went, they put me in level 1 out of 12, okay, with these little kids. Anyway, I come back and, I played a little better. They said, Bob, you've really picked up some good stuff. What are you going to go back wherever you did? And I said, sure, I can. So I went back 2 more times. And I love Tom. He was such a great fella, and I love their family. I wish that Linda and I could have done a lot more to do things with their family, but they were special. Tom was a special person, and he was always very positive, very positive person, and I love to be around him. That's my story.
Bob didn't really tell you the whole story. It was because of that beautiful badminton club that Georgia State was the venue for the 1996 badminton for the Olympics. More than that, he was also a coach of writing. I want to tell this story. I don't think any of his students were here to tell this story. So Tom knew about coaching, and he wrote a letter to the Georgia State Signal saying, basically, if you give me a comma coach, a semicolon coach, a paragraph coach, I named all these things, I'll put my students into the pros. But it all came from badminton, which he had learned at South Carolina with his mentor, Jim Merriweather. And then he took, there's some great badminton friends here. Sandy Anachi's son went to the Olympics in Seoul, in China. Anna's here, Cindy, Sue's here. I mean, he made a culture, like Jesse said, he made a community. You give him one other person, he's got a collection, and he's making a community. And so I just wanted to fill in on that coaching piece. Yeah.
I'm Grace. I am Tom's granddaughter. I'm Jesse, the middle child of his first set of daughter. And I am more of a numbers person, so forgive me all. I'm going to try my best with words. I wrote a little poem that I'm going to read, so here it goes. To understand the world, William Faulkner said, you must first understand a place like Mississippi. To understand Papa's world, you must first understand optimism above all complexity. You see, I always thought it was funny. He'd say at Ocean Isle, it never rained, even though it did, without fail, every beach trip, sometimes once a day. But what he really meant was the sun would always come out again, and that was all that really mattered anyways. He'd find all kinds of things on the side of the road, dust them off, call them art, and let their new life unfold. His collections of findings is a sight to behold. And as a little girl, his backyard felt like an enchanted garden, truth be told. Thank you.
Hi, Tom was my neighbor from when I was 11 to 18, next door neighbor. I'm here representing myself and my parents who couldn't make it. And I'm sure many of you would expect me to share about the many Pink Panthers that we exchanged over the years. But I wanted to share another story that stuck with me that most of you probably haven't heard. I think it comes as no surprise to me that I've heard today his talk of love of children and the respect and generosity that he's given to them. And I, at one point, was the honor to be his date on a lecture that Pearl gave at our local library on Eudora Welty. And just, it felt like such an honor to be included and for him to just be an adult in my life who sat down and listened with respect and interest in what was going on in my life as a young teenager. And it gave me a confidence that has stuck with me through the rest of my life. So I just want to say thank you to everyone, and it was an honor to be a part of Tom's life and his impact in mine.
Okay, again, I have to amend these stories. I'm just going to stand over there now. So many of you don't know the story about Emily and Tom and the Pink Panthers. So maybe Emily came over early on and Tom had a Pink Panther and she said, "Oh, that's my favorite." And Emily, don't correct me, just let me tell my And so he gave her a Pink Panther. And then there started this incredible exchange of innovation and creativity, and it'd be 4th of July, and Emily would make some sort of 4th of July. These are dressed up. And then Tom would make something like, I just have to jump to the big one, when she was going to Georgia Tech, he made a Ramblin' Wreck. I mean, and he would probably find some wooden truck or something and decorate it. He made her a grand piano for her piano recital with the Pink Panther sitting, like legs through the stool, so he would be right there. And Emily would make one when he had pneumonia and to cure him. And so pretty soon, pretty much as soon as this started, Tom was online buying the last dozen Pink Panthers in the world that weren't used. But really, anybody that came to our home that had a child got a naked Pink Panther. But Emily always dressed them up. So thank you.
I'm a different Emily. I'm not the Panther Emily. I'm Emily of the second set of 3 girls. And I haven't fully processed all of this yet. So I didn't write anything, and I don't fully know what I'll say, but I couldn't let it pass without me saying something. Tom has been my dad since I was 3, and has always been generous and supportive and so caring. I'm the daughter that stayed local out of my sisters and I. And coming to spend time with Mom and Tom has been a constant for me on a more frequent basis than for my sisters. And after college, moving apartments every 2 years. Load up the truck. I didn't stay anywhere more than 2 years. So eventually, once we reached this hand of moving, Emily, we're gonna have to get some of your younger friends to help with the bookcases and the washing machine. But the care and the concern and how's the car doing? How are you doing? We're gonna look for a house to buy. Well, we need to make sure that you're settled, that you're safe, that you're ready to go. And always in the supportive of, we're not waiting till we're gone to pass on legacies. We're going to support you now so that I can see you enjoying the support. And I'm so thankful for all the time and stories that I got to share with him. And I'm so thankful that I got to introduce Paul. He is eventually gonna be another son-in-law sort of a figure. And he got to meet Tom before he passed and before he lost all his memories. But so Tom got to see that I have support moving forward. And just knowing that if you're staying at the house and you're staying out late, make sure to open the door. I'm home. I'm safe. You can sleep now. Because they would stay awake. Mom and Tom would stay awake until they knew that everyone was back home in the house, safe and sound. Always caring. And I'm sure I'll process more later, but just so generous. And I remember that having the wooden angels, I think Mom mentioned the wooden angels in the hoops of light at Christmas every year. When we were at the Claremont house, he had the whole workshop downstairs in the basement, and he would make these angels, and I would always think, I'm gonna get an angel. But I didn't have a house. It was kind of like a housewarming thing that eventually you got an angel. And I always had the apartments, and then he wasn't really making them anymore, and he was in the other house, and he didn't have this whole setup. And I remember several years ago, once I had my house, I thought, I'm gonna ask for an angel. I'm gonna ask for an angel for my birthday. And my birthday came, and I got a lovely ginkgo metal table, but I didn't get an angel. But I saw a lot of attempts of angels in the garage. And I got an angel for Christmas. And that has always been one of the brilliances of Tom, is that he's been an artist and a verbal artist with his words, but also with his hands. I have 2 of his paintings that he did before I was even born in my living room. And he always was so supportive in everyone's endeavors. And this doesn't have a nice, cute wrap up. I'm just rambling now. So I just wanted to say that I love him so much. Thank you.
So I connected to Tom through Georgia State, where I teach in the English department, also through the book club, Pearl's Book Club. And Pearl is an amazing person. We both got hired for the same job. In fact, we were in competition, and this was in the heyday of the English department, where they said, well, let's get them both. And the amazing things that we did was partly because Pearl just had the vision and said, we're going to do it. And I'm like, no, we can't do that. And she said, no, we can. And she made it happen. But making it happen like that, I think, came in part from Tom. Tom was always there for us in the background, supporting her, and they were, I think, what we would have to call a power couple, right? They made changes in the world, they made obvious changes in their family, and they really connected to people all around the world. And so I appreciate Tom for all that he gave to people, but I appreciate Tom mostly for what he gave to Pearl. A true love and a true support all the way through. So thank you, Tom. We will miss you.
My name is Fraser Dwarrett and my wife Gloria. I don't know if you can all hear me. I can try to project my voice. You may notice I have this funny contraption. This is actually, I don't have any hearing in my right ear, and this picks up sound coming in from the right and transfers it through my brain over to my left ear where I can hear. And I wish I could share some of the sounds I have heard, the guffaws and the laughs. And it sounds a lot like Tom. And I just wish you could hear it like I do. That's all.
Hi, I'm Linda Kay, and I'm one of the badminton friends of Tom. I came to the scene a little bit after everything was already established, and I knew Bob, and I knew they played at Georgia State, and I moved to Atlanta. I was working in Atlanta. I moved to Atlanta to live, and I didn't want to just get together with my work buddies, so I thought, well, I'll go to Georgia State and play badminton. I wasn't very good, but I had fun, and I just remember how much fun Tom had playing badminton, and he was always laughing and always smiling. And I remember one time when we came to badminton, Tom was so excited. He had been to a hypnotist, and the hypnotist had worked with him, and he could smash the bird and clear the bird, which he'd never been able to do properly before, nor since. And I don't know why he didn't go back to the hypnotist, but he was just so excited about being able to do that and recommended we all go. So that's my story of Tom. He was such fun.